Well, good evening, everybody. As threatened, I wanted to talk a little bit about how to summarize a reading comprehension passage on the GRE. I know we kind of practice this in class, but nevertheless, this is a good review just to kind of do a stream of consciousness kind of thing, just so you kind of see how you would, want to be practicing this. So the first thing I want to do is let's review over our 5 points of what we're looking for in a given passage. And yes, not everything on the GRE is going to be as long as this. Like you can see, like we got this. It's about 4 paragraphs and relatively complicated. But nevertheless, this is what we're looking for. Remember, step one, figure out what is our topic slash subject, right? For every paragraph, what are we talking about? And then point number two, what are we saying about it? And again, the 2 and 3 really tie into each other. Ignore the details. We just want something really basic. Your goal, ultimately, when you're making notes as you're reading through what you're doing, is just jot down newspaper headlines, right? Just the Pope eloped, President declares war. Ignore all of you know, the fluff and just get at the main root idea of what's happening in each paragraph. Okay, this is critical. And then fourth, the keywords. We're watching out for stuff that gives us an idea of what is happening in the passage. And remember, we talked about these sorts of things. With the keywords, remember what we're looking for is stuff that indicates some sort of contrast, um, I can't even spell tonight. There it goes. Contrast, something that shows some sort of cause, like this happened because of this, or contrast indicates, however, but, although, all those kind of things help us figure out what the author is driving our attention towards. Okay, and then the final thing, number 5, is let's figure out what is the author's purpose. Is the author trying to, persuade us of something, or is it just strictly neutral? What's the author's attitude? Okay, so that was just sort of a rather fast review of what we have discussed. But that being stated, let's go ahead and summarize up what's going on in this passage. So, as I had said, I want to kind of do a stream of consciousness. This is how I would do it. Which automatically means like, oh nope, no, we're gonna tank our scores. But nevertheless, here's how we got this. All right, so I'm gonna read over this rather fast. 1970s, 2 debates. Oops, where's my pen? There it is. 2 debates. Okay, so right there, just in the first sentence, and remember, topic subject, that is usually found in your first sentence, almost always. Okay, so that signals to me, okay, we're talking about 2 debates, and what about it? So I'm going to put, for paragraph 1, something about 2 debates. Okay, what about them? Engaged many scholars of early United States histories. One focused on the status of women. So I'm going to underline that one. Primarily white women. Okay, so it looks like we're focusing on the difference between these 2 different debates, right? So one is, we should put that in something different. I'll put A, something about status of women. Okay, turning on the so-called Golden Age theory. There's a phrase there which posited that during the 18th century colonial era, American women enjoyed a brief period of high status relative to their this debate pitted scholars who, so pitted, there's a word, there's sort of a key word we could look at here, right? That's something that indicates battle. Scholars who believed women's lives deteriorated against, there's another keyword, those who thought women's lives had been no better before 1800. So it looks like we're talking about, just summarizing this up, it's something to do with the status of women, and it's looks like it's staying the same versus deteriorating. Okay, so there's a debate there. At issue were the causes of women's subordination. And it looks like, okay, we got a colon, so that means that's drawing our attention to something. Were these causes already in place? They're asking questions, right? So what were the causes of women's subordination? So I could put Q, women, sub. What caused it? All right. And then the next bit is the second debate. Okay, so this is the other thing. The so-called origins debate, here it is, was concerned the emergence of racial slavery in the southern colonies. Was slavery the inevitable result, or would so that okay? So the second debate seems to be about what they just said: origins debate. I'm going to put that down. And our idea is it's also asking questions about it. Where did it come from? Cues. Again, we do not have to write down all of the details here. We just want to make sort of a basic map of what's going on. And if we're asked a specific detailed question, we can jump back to it and answer it. So paragraph 1, 2 debates, one about the status of women, the other one status of origins, racial slavery, etc., and questions about it, where they came from. Boom. There's paragraph 1. Okay. Let's try to go and do paragraph 2. Let's see what we got. Now notice, switching up colors because I just get bored. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Notice the very first word is, if I can see my pen, there it is, although. That's a contrast keyword. So we know, just reading that, we know that we're going to have something is going to be contrasted with something else. So we have opposites going on. Again, I know I mentioned this in class, but this is critical to remember that if you've got a contrast word, if you can figure out one piece, that automatically tells you what the other piece has to be, right? If something is good and we have a contrast word, the other thing has to be bad, and vice versa, okay? So we have, although these debates are parallel, similar, immediately I know, okay, they've got to have some differences. And sure enough, there we go. Key differences distinguish them. Whereas, okay, so we know that this paragraph, right off that first sentence, we know that we're talking about the differences between the views. Diff between view. That's what we got going on, right? Just from that. Okay, so let's see. What are the differences? So this gets back to point number 2, right? What about? Topic is going to be the differences. Well, what are they? Let's see. The debate over women's status revolved around implicit comparisons of colonial women to their counterparts. Da, 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 da. Thus, there's a keyword, right? Leading to something. Thus, inviting comment from both. The origins debate. Okay, so what was the origins debate about? What's the contrast? Was primarily confined to a discussion about slavery in colonial America. Okay, there's a lot there to chew on. Let's think about how we would just summarize this. Basically, looks like we've got debate is about comparison. So I'm going to put women equals comparisons, whereas we've got the origins, the opposite of this. So we're not comparing stuff, confined to just slavery, limited to slavery. But again, the point here is we did have this idea that we were supposed to contrast this stuff. So if women's are, like comparing this versus something else, we know we can predict that the origins is not going to be comparative. And in fact, the text states that it's confined to a discussion about slavery. We're not comparing anything. Okay, so there's it. And then second, okay, so there's another point that they're trying to make here. In contrast, I'm sorry, my pen just went, wait, hold on, what happened here? Okay, where's my pen? There it is. I think it's there. Oh my goodness gracious. Sorry about this, everybody. I can't see. There it is. Okay, contrast. So there's another, contrast word right there. So we know we have another opposite. Second, in contrast to the newness of the debate, over women's status and its continued currency. The debate over race, had lost some of its urgency. So we have point A. We have a difference between what the focus of the women's, studies were, and then B, the idea of newness. Women equals new, whereas the origins debate over race and slavery, is old, has lost some of its urgency with this publication. So I guess I can say origins old. Okay, now let's look at the next couple of things here. And this video is getting a little bit long, so I'm going to pause here and we will resume in the next one. We'll finish up the next two paragraphs.